record button. Right, we'll be rerunning this session again and making sure that you guys have a second opportunity to pick it up because it's a lot of information. So last week we looked at diabetes, where is the sugar? And we reached right up to the protocol. And because of time, we had to break it now into two parts. And tonight we'll actually be looking at the actual protocols in how on reversing this disease. Now we have quite some information here, so I won't spend too much time on it in terms of the preliminaries. So let me go ahead and share my screen and get it up and running here for us so that we can jump right into it. Now, our memory text still remains the same, and we're going to do a little recap tonight. Let's just repeat the disclaimer. This is for educational purposes only and not intended to replace medical advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes to your health routine. Our key text, Exodus 15:26. And this is a very powerful text because it really kind of sets the tone for what we present and also for you to be able to claim the promises of the Lord as you go along. So we're going to read from the screen, Exodus 15:26. It says, "And the Lord said, If thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and will do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee." Now bow your heads with me as we pray. Dear Father, as we go into this second segment of this presentation, we just ask, Lord, that you may please open up our minds and give us the wisdom, Lord, to apply what you have taught in your words. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. So again, welcome one, welcome all. And we are getting ready to get started. Now, we're going to recap some of last week's information very quickly so we can kind of get a setup here. Now, we learned that disease never comes without a cause. And we also learn the sequence of disease. Of course, we're going to do a quick recap again because this is going to come in a lot more important tonight as we go into the protocol. So we learned that, first of all, how disease comes when the system, in fact, let's just read this. What is disease? Disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of the laws of health. Now, we're going to replace disease tonight with diabetes. So diabetes is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of the laws of health. So this little image that you see here of these 4-5 persons lined up, at the end, there is diabetes. Now, diabetes did not just occur. You didn't just wake up one morning and have diabetes. There was a system or sequence of events that happened. According to our definition, it says that first thing that happened was the system was, before the diabetes came, the system was trying to free itself. Now, what was the system freeing itself from? It was freeing itself from conditions. Constant elevated high blood sugar levels being key amongst them all. But then we had to ask ourselves, why did these blood sugar levels remain constantly high? And according to the definition, it says they came because there was a violation. Now, what was violated? The laws of health. So we have to recap what the laws of health are. Pure air, sunlight, abstemiousness or temperance, rest, exercise, proper diet, the use of water, trust in divine power. These are the true remedies. And we did some recap. So let's see if we remembered what we learned last week. So let's start with the first one. Where is insulin made? What organ of the body makes insulin? You're going to go ahead and type your answers in the chat below. If you are on Facebook, YouTube, if you are on Zoom, go ahead and type your answers in the chat below. So we're going to start this off with a little pop quiz, and then we're going to jump into the presentation. That is correct from the Johns family. It is made inside of the pancreas. Eloise, good to have you. Eloise, join us there from New York. Good to have you. And we see that diabetes is made in the pancreas. Now, we also said that when blood sugar or glucose, let's call it glucose, is in the bloodstream, there is a specific, should I call it what type of compound it is? I will. There's a specific hormone that is released to take excess blood sugar from the bloodstream and place it safely in somewhere. So 2 questions are there. Now the first one, what is the name of the hormone that takes excess blood sugar from the bloodstream? Question is on the floor. What is the name of the hormone responsible for taking excess blood sugar out of the bloodstream? All right. Yes, sorry, Bob. Let us see the answers coming in. What is the name of that hormone? Let me give you a clue. It starts with I and ends with N. There is your clue. The floor is now open for answers. Lovely, lovely. Let's see the answers coming in. Okay. And insulin is correct. That is correct. The name of the hormone is insulin. Insulin, made in the same pancreas, is responsible for taking blood sugar out of the bloodstream excess. And where does it send this blood sugar? Or where does it send the excess glucose? Next question is on the floor. Where is the excess glucose sent? Let us see in the chat. All right, the chat is quiet. So it's sent into the cells. Right, the cells is the powerhouse of the body, and that is where everything is made. Now, we also learned that there were, let me put the question out. How many types of diabetes are there? How many types of diabetes are there? So let us see answers. Okay, Eloise says 3. Any more answers on the floor? Alana says 3. Okay. All right. The Johns family says 4. Okay. So let us do the other one now. What are the different types of diabetes? So some says 3, some says 4. Let us see what these answers reveal. So go ahead and list for me in the chat the types of diabetes that exist. Say again? So I hear type 2, type 3, 3.5, and type 4. Okay. All right. Okay. So we getting somewhere. All right. Okay, so let's answer that. There are 4 types of diabetes. The first one is type 1, which is juvenile diabetes. That's the ones that babies are born with. And we learn where that came from. Mainly the milk in the formulas causing the body to attack the beta cells, which are responsible for producing insulin. So the body naturally reacts against itself because of the introduction of some of the casein inside of baby formulas, and that causes the body to destroy its natural insulin producing machine. The second one is type 1.5, and that is called latent autoimmune diabetes in adults. So this one is a more slow onset one, and we also learned that 5 to 20% of people diagnosed as type 2 were actually found to be type 1.5, right? So that's 2 types. Now the next one is type 2 diabetes. That is the one we are all familiar with. And this is now number 3. And then the last one is type 3 diabetes, which is also called Alzheimer's disease. So the correct answer is 4 types of diabetes: type 1, juvenile; type 1.5, latent adult autoimmune diabetes in adults, or LADA; type 2, which we are all familiar with; and type 3, also known as Alzheimer's disease. Now, last question before we go in. Actually, not the last question. We have to cover this one before. And that question, let us see. Let me see. Let me try and give you an easy question now. Right? What two organs in the body is responsible for making insulin? What two organs in the body is responsible for making insulin? What two organs in the body is responsible for making insulin? Let's go to the chat and let's see what the chat says. So we already list one. We said the pancreas. What is the second one? All right. That is correct. The brain and the pancreas, which makes it clear now why Alzheimer's is also called type 3 diabetes, because once the brain, that part of the brain gets destroyed, the insulin in the body also gets reduced, therefore leading as one of the cases to Alzheimer's disease. Now the last question, this is going to be the last question. What did we say from our studies causes type 2? Now note, what did we say from our discussion last week causes type 2 diabetes? What did we conclude cause type 2 diabetes? Right, so I'm going to give you guys a few seconds to get that one. What did we say according to our research causes type 2 diabetes? All right, so I'm going to give you the answer. And we concluded that diabetes type 2 is caused by fat in the diet. So fat in the diet and on the body causes type 2 diabetes. And we looked at this study that was done by Dr. Anderson, where he was able to feed some healthy young men a diet that was 65% fat, and that caused them to turn into mild diabetics. While at the same time, another group was fed 1 pound of sugar per day, and after 11 weeks, there was no diabetes found. So we learned that diabetes type 2 was actually caused by fat in the body. And how we understood that, we showed this picture where we saw that, as we mentioned, the cells opens the door and puts excess glucose inside. The insulin opens the door and puts excess glucose inside of the cells. However, when there is fat around the cells, that door is jammed, that door is blocked. As such, the insulin cannot get the door open, and so we have a backup of blood sugar or glucose in the blood. Lovely. So you guys did very well. Now let us move on to the actual protocol. So we got to bring the example out. You are in your house after you finish listening to this presentation, and you discover water on the floor. Upon closer investigation, we find that the water is coming from the bathroom. Now, when you go inside, you notice that the faucet is on full power, the sink is blocked, and the water is overflowing onto the floor. What steps would you take? Here are the actions. Mop the floor, turn off the faucet, and unplug the sink. Which would you do first? Which would you do second? And which one would you do third? Options are mop the floor, turn off the faucet, and unplug the sink. Let's go to the chat. All right, so let us see here. So first one, turn off the faucet. Okay, that is step one. What is step two? So we are in the chat. Yes, I'm going to start it off with a quick pop quiz. I want to make sure that you guys remembered what we would have spoke about last week. And then we will jump in to the actual protocol. So turn off the faucet. What is step number two? Unclog the sink. That is correct. And last step will be to mop the floor. Lovely. So that being said, that is the exact pattern we are going to move tonight. And remember we said that diabetes came because there was a system freeing itself from conditions that result from a violation of the laws of health. So now we're going to stop those violations and we are going to move in this pattern that we just laid out. Lovely. All right. So I see that all the answers are in. Lovely. Now, how do we turn off the faucet? And the first thing we do is going to be primarily with our diet. Now, why diet? And why do we start there? We're going to start there because as we saw from the studies, the fat in the diet is what is responsible for the formation of type 2 diabetes. And seeing that fat in the diet mainly comes in from our food, we are going to start right there. So I always like to start on a positive note. I'm going to start first by telling you what to eat. So we're going to start with all the good stuff. And then we will see what we should eliminate. All right? So foods to increase. These are some of the foods you want to increase if you or someone you know are dealing with diabetes. Squash. So that will come from the entire squash family. So pumpkin as well will be in there. And other diuretic foods or diuretic foods like celery, cauliflower, eggplant, and parsley. Now the reason you do this, because as we mentioned last week, what you will notice is that persons who have diabetes, especially if they've been on medication for a while, they would also have poor kidney function or the kidney function starting to become poor. Now the kidneys are also responsible for regulating the amount of fluid in the body, which is why when somebody has a poorly functioning kidney, they would have swelling in the feet and other areas, feet and chest primarily. So you want to use diuretic foods to help to support that kidney. And of course, if you do the other parts, by extension, repair it so the kidney can function better. Now, what diuretic foods do, they help to work along with the kidney so that it can remove excess fluid built up in the body. All right. These are also some foods you want to increase. Our fruits, as we see here on the screen. And point to note, when we talk about diabetics, we specifically are talking about fruits in their natural state. What do I mean? So we're not going to take these fruits and juice them. We're not going to take these fruits from cans or containers. We want to eat these fruits in its natural state. Why? Because these fruits are also packed with fibers. Now, most diabetics tend to be afraid of fruits because of the sugar, which they do have. However, the Lord has not been taken off guard. So he has packaged these foods in their original state with fiber. And what fiber does, fiber slows the release of glucose. So it helps the body to have a drip feed effect. And that way you won't have as much spikes in your blood sugar. Quantity is also important. So you won't go and eat 16 mangoes in one sitting. But at the same time, you will not avoid mango altogether. Right? Because mango also has vitamin A, which we know helps to strengthen the eye system or helps to strengthen our eyes so that we can see better. And we know this is also one of the side effects of diabetes where it damages our eyesight. Right? So just a point to note, you will eat in smart quantities. I'll come to that shortly. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you eat it in its original state. So these are some of the foods, as you can see in the picture here, that we will be including in our diet. We have mangoes there again. We mentioned about it helping to prevent night blindness. Now, we also want to use salt. And remember, we learned from the laws of health a couple of weeks ago of the abstemiousness or temperance. And we defined abstemiousness as using just enough of what we need and avoiding altogether the foods that are bad for us. So salt, we're just going to use just enough. But is it any type of salt? No. We're going to be using salt in its natural state. So we are talking about things like pink Himalayan salt. We are talking about things like Celtic sea salt. For us here in St. Vincent, Union sea salt. Why? Because these contains not only iodine, but also other trace minerals. We are talking 50 plus, which all works with the body to help it to do its thing. Now, our next one that is really, really good for diabetes specifically is beta-melon, or as it is called in Trinidad, Coralie. Right? Now, this actually helps by repairing the pancreatic beta cells or preventing their death. Now, what is the purpose of the pancreatic beta cells? Remember, I said the pancreatic beta cells are what are responsible for producing insulin. So what beta-melon or Coralie does, it actually helps the body to produce insulin, or more specifically, helps the factories of the body that produce insulin to be healthier and to function better, right? So you can use it in your cooking, and I know, as the name would suggest, it is very bitter. So luckily for you, it is also available in capsule form, and that is also an option for those of you who do not wish to cook with it or use it as part of your cooking. Now, that being said, these are options of things that you can add. So what I'm giving you is not you're going to get all of these, but I'm giving you a list of things that you would choose based on your location. So maybe beta-melon is available in your country, then you would use that. Maybe the capsule is available, you would use that, and so forth. Things like salt, I would specify which ones you would definitely keep as a part of your daily cooking. I would specify those. So the salt for sure, that is something that everybody must use, and that is the natural pink Himalayan sea salt, or the Celtic pink Himalayan salt, or the Celtic sea salt, or the Union salt. So you want to switch out your normal table salt for this option. Right. We want to switch now to our grains, and we're looking at things like buckwheat and also tofu. And the reason for adding these in is that these also have a lot of fiber. And what fiber does, as we mentioned, fiber helps to slow the release or breakdown of the sugar. So that's why we want to make sure and add that. So these are also some grains. Now, all forms of beans and whole grains we'll definitely recommend. So this is where you're going to be getting your protein from, because remember we said that you still have to make sure you get those protein. So you'll want to get your beans, and that's a great place and a very good source of protein, especially if you don't have any allergic reaction or anything like fibroids. Fibroids will be the only exception for this specific bean I'm about to mention, would be the soybean. Soybean is very highly packed with healthy fats, and also the highest source of protein amongst the bean kingdom. The second one is lentils, right? So just something I thought I'd put in there for you. Now you want to increase soluble fiber, and again we talk about that. That's things like oats, brown rice, pectin, nuts. Now this is a very important one. Quercetin. Now quercetin actually helps to lower blood sugar levels, and you can find quercetin in onions, right? That is one of the places where you'll find quercetin. So when you're cooking, make sure that you are adding at least one onion with your food, so you can cut up. You could cut up and add that to your cooking. That would also help with the lowering of your blood sugar levels. Now, we want to use healthy nuts and seeds. What this does, one of the side effects of diabetes, as we mentioned, is polyphagia, which is you're always feeling hungry. Some persons experience that. And what the nuts do, and let me start before I go to the nuts. Let me tell you, the first one will be the protein. So you definitely want to bump your protein up. Protein helps you to feel fuller longer. And then when you eat nuts, seeds at the end of a meal, they actually help to sustain you until your next meal. So they help you to feel fuller as well. It actually works by slowing the passage of food through your digestive system, so that your hunger, your appetite would be controlled. All right, now this is a very big one, pumpkin seeds. So this is something I would suggest if you're diabetic, you want to make sure and add for sure, right? I know every country in the world would have access to pumpkin seeds. So just like I mentioned the salt, the pumpkin seed is something that I want you definitely to start adding. Now, pumpkin seed is very powerful, right? What it does, it actually helps to improve insulin production by 95%. So think of the drug medication. What they do, some of them pump insulin directly. So if you're taking insulin shots, or some of them use other mechanisms, for example, like the metformin. And we also learned that these drugs also have side effects. However, pumpkin seeds does the similar thing by supporting, again, those beta cells, that insulin factory, and it actually helps to boost insulin production. It lowers blood sugar levels, and it is an antioxidant protection of the cell. Now, this is a 2-for-1 special. Pumpkin seeds is also a seed, which means it has healthy fats. So remember earlier we said at the end of a meal you want to add healthy fats. So you can do a 2-for-1 special. Instead of going and buying nuts, you can just buy the pumpkin seeds, and you will get the benefits of the insulin production improving, and also the benefit of it keeping you fuller longer. So those are some of the foods you want to add to our diet. Now let's talk about the ones you want to avoid. Of course, excess fats. And this is excess fats from all sources. So even the healthy sources. So even though I said you should eat healthy, you should eat your seeds at the end of the meal, note that we said a close handful of nuts. We didn't say go and eat a whole bowl of nuts or eat nuts every single minute you're feeling hungry, because now we'll be going in the excess, and then we end up with the same problem where there will be too much fat in the body, and we have the same problem. Now, some of the foods you want to exclude, of course, those in the flesh and animal kingdom, specifically because they also are high in fats and they do not contain fiber. So you are getting the fat without the fiber, which is even more dangerous than the fat alone, right? Amongst other things. Dairy, of course, same principle applies. And for those of you who actually love dairy, I'm not sure if you realize this, but you can actually get dairy from the plant kingdom. So there's almond milk, cashew milk, and all of the other plant-based milk, soy milk. For those of you not allergic to soy or have fibroids, these are some other options that you can replace them with. So dairy and its byproducts goes without saying. Alcohol actually negatively affects blood sugar because the body does not know how to process the sugars in alcohol. So now you have a condition where there is a substance in the body not sure how to deal with it. It works by damaging the liver, which is supposed to filter. And so you have the filtration system damaged. You have a compound in your body which your body does not handle well. And then you have your blood sugar levels elevated. So you're getting a 3-for-1 special in a very negative way. So that is something you definitely want to avoid. Now, let me spend some time on this one. There are certain grains, especially if you are really bad with diabetes, that you want to limit or cut out, right? There are certain grains. These would be amongst wheat, rye, barley, spelt, and kamut. Now, wheat, as we know, especially in the Western Hemisphere. In fact, let me share a quick story with you. I had a friend while I was working in Liat, and she had celiac disease. Now, what is celiac disease? Celiac disease is a disease where they cannot tolerate gluten at all, not even a little bit. And so she would avoid all of the gluten foods. She would avoid bread, pasta, all of the things with gluten. Once, she's also a singer, and so she had an assignment in France. And she went over to France to do one of her gigs over there. And while over there, busy, not really paying attention, she ate bread. And then when she got back to the hotel, she realized that, whoa, I ate bread. So she is now waiting for the reaction. Nothing happened. So she got curious. So the second day, she repeated it again. She ate bread and nothing happened. And what she realized, that she was able to eat bread in France, but not over on this side of the hemisphere. Why? So if you are familiar with the European laws are very strict when it comes to food. Case in point, if you look at a lot of our snacks like Fatberry, Reese's cupcakes, the cereals, and you look at the ingredients of the one made in the UK versus the ones made in the US, you will see that the US ones has a bunch of chemicals and foods in there, while the ones in the UK have very limited amount. So because of that, it also means that the grains and the grains specifically used to make bread over there would more than likely not be so heavily genetically, if at all, modified. And so she was able to use the grains over there, not here, because the grains over there had a stricter, if you want to put it a better way, it was more healthier than the ones that we had on this side of the pond. Now, this could also be backed up because if you look in the Bible, you would see that almost all of the foods revolves around grains, but you never used to hear things like celiac disease, diabetes, etc., etc. Because, of course, they were not trying to be God with their foods, right? So just thought I'll put that in there as well. When it comes to bread, 2 slices of whole wheat bread will raise your blood sugar more than having 2 tablespoons of table sugar, right? So just to kind of reiterate the point. Now, when you're dealing with diabetes, you would hear the index used called the GI or the glycemic index. And this is really shows you how the foods causes blood sugar rises in your body. And the higher the number, the worse it is, the lower the number, the better it is in theory. Now, this also has an next part, which is glycemic load. I won't go into that tonight, but I just want to show this here. So if you look at white bread has a glycemic index of 69. Whole wheat bread, has one of 72. Wheat cereal, 67. So right off the bat, you see on the whole wheat bread or whole grain bread, and we're talking about the grains with the gluten, actually raise the blood sugar more than even the white bread, right? So that being said, you can see right off the bat that the gluten inside of these is actually negatively reacting inside of the body. So that is the reason we say, especially if you're diabetic, you want to lay off of the flours, the processed, the refined flours, and even the wheat flour because of the part of the world that we live in, right? White rice, of course, you want to stay away from that for now, right? Until we get the body back in alignment, and then you may be able to reintroduce it thereafter. So this is for persons with type 2 diabetes. Now, they have a chronic high blood sugar level. So even though some of these foods in their original state are okay, because of the condition we're dealing with, we want to make sure that we turn off any excess, balance the body, reverse the disease, and then we can go back to a normal way of eating. I just thought I'd put that in there, which is why you would see this as well. Natural or artificial sweeteners, of course, we know about that, but dried fruits. So remember we said we eat the fruits in its original state? The dried fruits would have all of the water removed, and they will tend to be higher in the sugar content, so you would definitely want to avoid those if you are chronic diabetic. Now, these goes without saying, all of the other high-fat foods here, we just mentioned them. Now, let's get to the sweet part. When we put together our plate, what should our plate look like? So, again, I'm going to base this plate on a plant-based diet, but at the same time, I'm going to leave some provisions there for those persons who are not fully plant-based. So, half your plate, you want to eat raw fruits or raw vegetables. Reason being, fruits and vegetables, when combined, can cause indigestion, and so we recommend eating fruits at one meal and vegetables at the next meal. So half your plate, you want to use raw or steamed fruits or vegetables. On the other side, we now have 2 quarters. That quarter will be the carbohydrates, and we call these the smart carbs, the ones that we see that we can use. And then the other quarter will be protein. And that, of course, preferably should come from your plant sources. If not, if you don't get it from your plant sources, then I will just circle back on the preparation method. I'll talk about those shortly. And then a small portion will be your healthy fats. Now, what you would also realize is that you can actually, in some cases, skip the fats altogether, because some of the other foods, namely the proteins, will also come packaged with some healthy fats inside of them. So depending on what you're eating, for example, if you're eating soybeans, these will tend to have natural fats in them, so you do not have to add extra fat, right? So just thought I'll put that in there. Now, let us break this apart. When we are talking about nutrition, there are 3 things we look at: the type of foods you eat, the preparation of those foods, and the timing of those foods. So I'm going to spend some time on the preparation. If at this point you're not fully plant-based, there is still hope. Meaning that, okay, if you can't get your protein sources from plants and you are going to use flesh items, your preparation has to definitely be more on point if you are a diabetic. You want to avoid things like deep frying, barbecuing, stewing as we do with the sugar here in St. Vincent. These are some of the methods you want to avoid when you're preparing it. You want to stick more with methods like baking, boiling, broiling, and a more newer one, which is air frying. These would tend to lower the fat content, the added fat content, because the food also comes with fat. These would tend to lower the added fat content, and that would be your protein source. Now, as a diabetic, you want to ensure this is how you would eat. When you are eating, you're going to tackle your raw foods first. So if you have your fruits, if you're doing fruits, you want to hit those first. Then the next one you will go after is the protein. So make sure that protein is loaded up. And then whatever space you have left back, then you would add you would eat the carbs. In fact, if you really want to turn this thing into full throttle, that would be the recommendation I would actually give you. Right? The raw foods first, then the proteins, and then the carbs. If you eat in that sequence, you will tend to feel fuller longer. If you also find that you are still hungry between meals, then you'll bump the proteins up. Bump your proteins up, and this will tend to help you to feel fuller. The last result will be adding the healthy fats at the end of the meal, as we mentioned. Now, let's just give some examples here. So, fruits, anything with seeds inside. So, in this picture, we have tomatoes. We also have baigan or eggplant. That will be the half on the raw or steam side. Then for the proteins, we have some peas there. That could also be lentils. And then finally for the carbs, we have our ground provision. Remember, if you eat in the sequence I mentioned, then you would not really have a problem because the proteins, especially coming from the peas, would also have fiber in them. The tomatoes have fiber in them. The eggplant have fiber in them. That fiber is loaded up before the carbs coming in, and these carbs and all have fiber in them, will help that sugar spike to not be as pronounced, right? And then for your nuts, you have a handful of almonds there. Now, here's the next option. This one will be a vegetable-based diet. So for the raw vegetables, they're using lettuce. You could also use bhaji or kalalu, as we call it there. That will be half of your plate. Your proteins, in this case, is lentils. And then you have the brown rice there as the carbohydrates and the cashew nuts as your handful of fats. Let's do a next one. In this one, we have banana. No, that's not the whole hand of banana, right? That's the picture we're going to get there, right? So you're not going to eat a whole hand of banana. You'll eat your banana first. For your fruit, it would be your pumpkin. And then you would have red bean or kidney beans. And then you would have your brown rice and, of course, cashew. Now, let's do a breakfast meal. We would have lettuce there. Then we have our oat patties. We have 2 slices of approved grains. No, this is not wheat. This is not the other grains that we said that we want to avoid. And let's just run back quickly to that slide so that you can see what they are. Let me just put it up quickly here. Let me see if I can find it. Right. So you're going to avoid the gluten grains, wheat, rye, barley, spelt, kamut. Now, anything else you can make. So I know someone who makes oats bread. So you could actually use oats and make your bread there. You could use quinoa and make your bread. You can use amaranth. And I'm calling all the different grains based on where we are here in the world. So I know we have persons from all over the world on this one. So you will choose the one that works best for you. Right? Lovely. So these are some of the food options that you can add. And what I'm going to do too, let me just stick a pin here. If you have any questions in regards to the foods before we move on, because we're going to move on now to the lifestyle part, you can go ahead and raise your hand or put them in the chat. In fact, put them in chat and let me answer them before we move on. So I'll just give you 30 seconds if you have any questions in regards to foods. Ask them now in the chat and we'll answer them and then we will move on. So let me just preempt a couple of questions. Now, persons ask all the things like oats porridge. So you can still use your oats porridge. You can still use your cornmeal porridge. And these types of porridge, if you're in places like Grenada where they use the ground provision and Tanya log, you would use that. Of course, you would avoid using the animal milk and you would use a plant milk instead. And in terms of the sweetener, you would definitely have to cut out the sugar or drastically reduce it to something that is more low glycemic. All right, so you can use that as well. And then for your protein, you still got to add the protein in because you want the fiber. Lovely. So now let's move on to the other part with the lifestyle. So now we're going to unplug the sink and we're going to talk about lifestyle changes. Now, this is specifically for diabetics, especially those of you who go walking or exercise in any form. Now, whenever you go exercising, walking, whatever form you choose, always walk with a whole fruit. So that could be an orange, you keep that with you. Why? Because if you experience the effects of low blood sugar, which could happen, and you would see why, that will be things like headache, trembling, lightheadedness, anxiety, nausea. then you will just grab that fruit, eat it, so you can bring your blood sugar back up to a healthy level. Now, I see persons using things like sweetie, candy, etc. That is definitely not a preferred option. In an emergency, you have to do what you have to do to bring the blood sugar levels back up. And because we don't live in a health conscious society where persons will normally have fruits on them, that is normally the easiest thing to find. So that is where it is used. But if you are exercising, if you are diabetic, always keep some level of whole fruit on you so that when you go there and you feel any sort of lightheadedness or signs that your blood sugar levels is dropping, you can just reach in your bag, grab that, and use that. Right now, something you want to use is digestive walk. Now, what is a digestive walk? It's what we'll define as a casual 15 to 30-minute walk after eating. So this is like your natural insulin or a natural metformin. And what it does, it prevents the blood sugar levels from spiking too much. So just the form of exercising. This is not a power walk. It's just a casual walk after you finish your food. Just go for a nice light walk. And this would actually help to stabilize and prevent the blood sugar levels from spiraling out of control. Now, some practical ways in which you can do this is, let's say you go to your work, you're working, and you go to buy lunch. Then what you can do is have the lunch wherever you are, and then walk back to your office. You can use that as a digestive walk. And if you walk in the sun, then you'll be getting a 2-for-1 special, right? After meals, then you will go and just take a nice casual walk. If you're home, do a nice casual walk, and then that will also be a digestive walk. If you have errands to run, schedule them after your meals. So you eat first, and then you go and run your errands. Obviously, walk your errands, and that would also be used as a digestive walk. So you want to make this practical in ways you can add it into your everyday life, and not something you have to go and do as a separate activity, right? So just thought I'd put it in there. Now, the digestive walk is also beneficial for persons who are not diabetic, but I'm just putting it in here. So for the average healthy person, digestive walk should also be part of your everyday routine. Now, because of the issues of poor healing and poor repair of the body, especially amongst diabetics, you want to make sure that you avoid infection. So you want to make sure and keep your teeth, keep your entire body clean, and also keep your feet dry every day. We talk about the nerve endings being damaged from diabetes, and so you'll not be able to feel as good. So we want to make sure and keep those extremities, your feet, dry and clean every day. Wear comfortable footwear and ensure that you are having regular bowel movements, right? Of course, avoid stress. And what you would notice, a lot of these lifestyle changes now are going back to the health laws. So you would avoid stress. And something that you can do to avoid stress is exercise. Exercise is like one of the easiest things to avoid stress because exercise actually helps to release these happy hormones. So persons who are depressed and anxious, we tend to recommend that they engage in some sort of exercise program. And 2-for-1 special, do it in the sun or find time to go in the sun at some point. All right. Avoid smoking, lower your weight, increase water, of course, just to make sure that this dilutes any excess sugar that will be in your body. Now, this is a big one. And this will be the law of health, which is rest. Go to bed before 10 p.m. Like there is no alternative to that. I don't have any walkarounds, any things that you can do to avoid that, especially if you're diabetic, because sleep duration and quality directly affects your blood sugar levels. And we looked at that when we were talking about the dog example last week. So this directly affects your blood sugar levels. And if you don't go to bed on time, all the time, you would find that you may be doing all of the other stuff, but your blood sugar levels are still up and down. In fact, one study from the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that 30 minutes a day of sleep debt. So we aim for about 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night. If you reduce that by just 30 minutes, it can actually have significant effects on your obesity, and the number would be 17%. And also, it can increase insulin resistance by almost half. We have here 39%. This is especially true for shift workers. So if you work a shift system, this is definitely something that you will be dealing with and something that you may have to reconsider, especially if health is your priority. All right? So just thought I'd put that in there. Now, what you would notice is that we are now trying to break all of the violations. We're going with the hardest hitter, which is the diet first. And then now we are adding things like walking, exercise. We're walking in things like going to bed before 10 p.m., which is rest. We are adding in things like reducing stress, which will be trust in divine power and abstemiousness. And you see all of these habits now being added in, or all of these different laws being added in. Now let's get down to the part that most persons like to run to first. And if you notice, this is at the last part. And the video that we showed last week kind of really explained where the herbs come in. So the herbs come in to clean up the condition. Now you're not herb deficient. You didn't get diabetes or any other disease because you were lacking any herbs. You got diabetes or any other disease because the violations of the laws of health were made. So this is why this always comes last. So once these two are in place, then we can introduce the herbs. If you go to the approach of just using the herbs without changing the lifestyle, then you will end up in the same condition, except the only benefit you will have is probably not as much side effect as using the drugs, right? So let me just put that in there. Now, at the top of the list is going to be a spike protein detox. Now, heretofore, 2020 and before, this was never mentioned in a diabetes or any disease reversal protocol. Since the inoculation experiment, the mass inoculation experiment, and I don't even think I need to go too much into that because we are seeing the effects every day, all of the diseases have changed. Or, let me put it next week. The mass inoculation has changed the body's response to all of the diseases, right? So, if you are going on a disease reversal protocol without first clearing out the effects of the vaccine, whether you got it through being vaccinated or long COVID, which means you caught COVID or you came in contact with somebody who had COVID or is vaccinated, then you would really be spinning top in mud. That's the easiest way we could put it. Unless you get rid of the spike protein, and I'm seeing now on the internet, there's a lot of studies, a lot of persons now, doctors, etc., coming out on the effects of the spike protein in the body. However, you got it. And this is one of those things that you had to get it at some point. You had to come in contact with it. So even if it wasn't vaccinated, you would have touched somebody who'd been vaccinated. You would have come close to somebody who's vaccinated. Or you would have caught COVID or touched somebody, came in contact with somebody who had COVID. So that is just how they set it up. But thankfully, Lord has already given us these answers beforehand. So the first thing you must do is a spike protein detox. Now, I do have a full protocol. We actually have a full protocol at Fitma with the spike protein detox and all the herbs. I'll probably do a segment on that, on the herbs specifically that you should be using in spike protein. And there's one that we are using right now with very good results. And I'll probably do a segment on that as well. Right? So the first thing you're going to be doing is that. Now, once we get that out of the way, we're going to use some other things. Now, remember, these are options for you. These are not, you're going to go and get all of these. Except for the spike protein. Everybody must get the spike protein. Everything else is going to be options. So you work with the one that's available in your country. So you're going to use garlic. And let me switch to this slide first. And we're aiming for about 4 cloves daily. Now, again, this is just put it in your cooking. You're not going out and eat 4 cloves of garlic. Just put it in your cooking. Whatever you're cooking, make sure you're getting in 4 cloves of garlic daily. This will help with the insulin sensitivity, help the insulin to the insulin factories to work better and help your body to work better. So 4 cloves of that garlic daily, and you get it in however. Now, if you do not like garlic, then you will switch to this option, which is the Garlanase. This is a capsule version of the garlic, and it has about 4 cloves of garlic in each servings. Plus, you wouldn't have the garlic breath that is associated with eating garlic. Now, let me just put a caveat in here. If you're on blood thinning medications, then this is one of those things you would obviously want to speak with a doctor first to ensure there are no interactions between garlic and your blood thinning medications until you're able to wean yourself off of it. Now, the next one we're going to be looking at, and this way you could take your phones out and start taking pictures, is something called Gymnea sylvestre. And what this is one of those natural remedies that actually helps, again, with protecting the insulin factories, but more specifically, it actually helps to reduce sugar cravings. So, you know, some persons like myself have a sweet tooth. Every time you don't eat, you want to eat something sweet. Gymnea sylvestre will actually reduce that craving, so you will not have the craving for sweet food. And what they found is that persons who use this tend to consume a lot less sweet foods. So if you are dealing specifically with a sweet tooth craving, this is something you may want to add. GTF chromium, it's again a trace mineral, and this actually helps specifically to normalize the blood sugar. Now, these three that I listed here, GTF and fenugreek seeds, either or. This is one of those, again, in the compulsory bag of the diabetics. So we added we added salt, pink Himalayan onion of the natural salt, as something that you want to add. This would also be one of those that will be in those bags. So you have three options here. My suggestion would be choose between if you couldn't choose one, choose between the GTF chromium or the fenugreek seeds. Both of these would actually help with lowering the blood sugar levels. Fenugreek seeds, most of you can find them in the grocery in the spice section, and you would actually prepare it in a tea format. So it'll be 1 teaspoon to 4 cups of boiling water, simmer for 15 minutes, then brew. Brew just means cover and leave it for 40 minutes and drink it throughout the day. Right? So this will help with your blood sugar levels. Now, because we are dealing with the blood, and when we deal with the blood, we got to deal with the blood specifically and the organs that directly filter or clean the blood. These next set of herbs is going to attack those. So burdock root cleanses the blood and liver. Like that is one of the core things that you would find. And let me just put this in here. The spike protein detox also contains the blood, liver, colon, kidney, spleen, and the spike protein protocol. So if you have this, you would not need to go and get the burdock and dandelion separately because it's already in there. All right, it's just something I thought I'd put in there. Dandelion contains insulin-like chemicals, so it has the effect of what insulin have in the body. But dandelion more specifically helps to clean the liver. Another one that is not here that I didn't add is milk thistle. These actually help to clean the liver. So if you're dealing with blood sugar, you want to make sure the blood and the filtration organs of the blood are kept clean. Now, cinnamon bark, this actually helps with lowering the blood sugar, and we tend to drink this one at night. So 4 inches if you have the herb, or if you have the powder, you're going to go for 1 teaspoon of the powder. Same preparation method, 4 cups of water. Simmer, mean leave it boiling for about 15 minutes, and then cover and leave it for 40 minutes. You can leave it overnight if you wish. Now, this is an honorable mention. This one is something that we find has been working very good. It's called berberine, and it's normally found in barberry and golden seal. And this one I know for sure works really good in terms of lowering the blood sugar. So what it does, it improves insulin sensitivity, which simply means it helps insulin respond better to blood sugar and the whole direction of the blood glucose inside of the cells. So it actually works very good. It actually reduces glucose production in the liver. It helps the muscles absorb glucose better. So all these are taking glucose outside of the blood, right? And it actually may reduce carbohydrate absorption. Now, this is a big one. It activates AMPK. Now, basically, AMPK is the master metabolic switch. Berberine, I could tell you for sure, we use a lot in weight loss. So this actually helps to increase in metabolism. And a lot of our weight loss products have berberine in them for that same reason. And you'll find that there's a link between weight gain and high insulin levels or high blood sugar levels. So berberine works very good in terms of improving insulin sensitivity. So this is something that you could consider adding there as well. And next one that we are hearing on the market is black seed oil. Black seed oil also helps to increase insulin sensitivity and helps with healthy blood sugar levels. Now, it also, this is a side note, helps with immune function. So it helps to strengthen your immune system. And if you're one of those persons who suffer with that morning allergy or those sneezing, then black seed oil works really good for that. So I would just put this in that black seed oil tastes like diesel. So it actually comes in capsules as well. So if you feel offended by the scent, because it literally tastes like diesel, that is the closest thing I could put in terms of what it would taste like. I've never tasted diesel, but just the smell of it, that is what black seed oil tastes like. So if that is not something you can tolerate, then you would take it in a capsule function format, and that would help. Now, we talked also that when you have blood sugar levels high, diabetes, your kidneys tend to start to take a hit. So the next set of herbs will tend to help with the kidneys. So any herbs that help with the kidneys would also be something you'd want to add in your protocol. Again, this is in the spike protein kit. So this is not something you need to buy separately. The two herbs will be Orva, which helps the kidney excrete excess sugar, or corn silk. Now, what is corn silk? You know the hair of the corn, like when you pick the corn, there is the hair of the corn that is to the top. That is what you use. You'll take that hair and you will just add it to the top, pour boiling water over it, and allow it to draw for 30 minutes. That actually helps to flush the kidneys. So I'm giving you the cheap version. If you grow corn, don't throw away the hair. Before you sell the corn, pull out all the hair and you keep that in a bag, dry it in the sun, and you can use that daily. Now, you see the herbs like Orva, burdock root, dandelion, milk thistle. These are things that you can use even if you don't have blood sugar levels problems, okay? So just something I thought I'd put in there. Some other ones are echinacea. There is a specific blood sugar formula by now. It's called blood sugar. And that actually has most of these herbs inside. So you have like a combined effect there. And bilberry, eyebright, lutein, used as directed by the bottle. So these are some of the herbs that you can use in getting your blood sugar levels down. And remember, these are options. You don't have to use all of them. These are options. As I told you, my key picks would be if you are making note, if you are choosing from this list, it will be getting either JTF chromium or fenugreek seeds. And if you want to give the berberine a try, it has been really showing some really good results, especially in weight loss and insulin sensitivity. So that's just something I thought I'll put in there for you. Right, let's keep it moving. Now, lecithin granules actually helps to dissolve fat, diabetes, and cholesterol in the blood. Right? Now, lecithin granules, they are like some little granules, like little seeds. They actually have a nice taste. You can just sprinkle them over your food. So if you are dealing with other issues, and what you would realize that when you have one of these diseases, like high blood sugar or diabetes, you would tend to also have either blood pressure issues. You tend to also have cholesterol issues, because if you remember the train of thought that we just discussed, most of these issues came from our diet. And yes, blood sugar might be the one that comes to the surface first, but if you're eating a diet that is high in fat and high in cholesterol, then actually or eventually, the high cholesterol levels will be showing up in your blood work. High blood pressure levels will be showing up in your blood work. And so you would tend to see all of these coming. Some of these herbs, even though they are listed for blood sugar, they also deal with some of the other issues as well. Some other things are artichoke, string beans, prickly pear, and bitter melon fruit. We just mentioned that. Now, prickly pear is this cactus that you see here on the screen. I was first introduced to this in Grenada by a medical missionary, and she used this a lot for blood sugar patients. So if you are in the Caribbean, I can guarantee you that you will find prickly pear. It's like cactus, right? And you can actually make teas from this. If you want some recipes on how to actually use it and add it to your cooking, it can actually be used in cooking as well. This one I know works very good for your blood sugar levels. And things like cinnamon, prickly pear, bitter melon, coriander, as we mentioned, these are things that grow around you. So you don't need to go out and buy them. So when you finish here, you would try and, as you go through the week, see how you can start gathering these, because they're probably in your backyard, they're probably inside of your kitchen cabinet, and now you want to make sure and add these into your daily consumption of food. Now let's talk about sunlight. We got to bring sunlight in. Sunlight, we're looking, if you are a dark-skinned individual, and dark skin is from my level go back, you're looking at about 45 minutes to an hour and a half of sunlight per day. We already discussed the benefits of sunlight. You don't have to stand up in the sun for an hour and a half or stand up in the sun for 45 minutes. It could be accumulated, right? So a little piece in the morning, a little piece in the evening, you get it in there. The preferable hours are 9 to 3, but if you don't get to go in the sun for 9 to 3 because right now the sun real hot, take what you get, right? Work with that. Now, if you live in a country where the sunlight is not prevalent, or you do not want to go and enjoy the Lord's beautiful sunlight for whatever reason, then your next best option is vitamin D3. And let me just add this in because this must be added. Vitamin D3 with K2. Not just vitamin D3, vitamin D3 with K2. Why? What K2 does, what vitamin D3 does, vitamin D3 helps the body to absorb calcium. However, sometimes if the calcium is too much, it could be deposited inside of your arterial walls. And anything in the arterial walls could cause a blockage. So what K2 does, K2 takes the excess and directs it back into the bones to help to strengthen the bones, right? So just something why we have now started added vitamin D3 with K2. You're looking at about 5,000 IUs, and that would be right in the bottle telling you how much is in there. 5,000 IUs daily until the levels are back in line. Right? Now let's talk about some emergency procedures. So if you're dealing with blood sugar persons, and I've seen some of these firsthand where they just pass out, if your levels begin to drop to dangerous levels, then there are some things that we need to talk about. So at night, let me just read it. If at night or morning your blood sugar level drops below 80 milligram per deciliter, or 4.4 if you're using that scale, then eat a piece of fruit. We just mentioned that. And there are times when you expect your blood sugar to drop. This will be primarily in the morning, or if you haven't eaten a meal in a while. These are the times, and then the third one will be exercise. These are the times when you expect your blood sugar levels to drop. So it comes back to my original point. Always keep that fruit in a hand's reach. So you could always grab for it and use an emergency in dosage there of bringing the blood sugar levels back up. Also, if your blood sugar level, what about the opposite direction? If it goes too high, so too high would be 140 milligram per deciliter or 7.8 or below before bedtime. Be careful with the amount of medication that you take at a time. So normally when person's blood sugar low up, they start to just take the medication, or if they're using insulin, inject themselves. Be very careful the amount you're using, especially when you are beginning to use natural remedies. Because the last thing you want to do is bottom under, which means your blood pressure level, your blood sugar levels drop way too low, and now you have a different issue, right? So that's just something you may want to keep in mind. Always, definitely, it goes without saying, if you have diabetes, invest or have a family member send for you one of these glucometers, the machines that check your blood sugar levels, right? So that's something you want to check it. Make sure that you know what your blood sugar levels are. And you want to keep checking it on a weekly basis, meaning that for a week duration. So you check it every day for a week, and then you'll have a average of what your blood sugar levels should be, right? Lovely. Now, if your blood sugar levels keep dropping, and this could happen, I'll tell you when this would happen. This would happen if you're using natural remedies and you're taking the same amount of drugs as you were originally prescribed to. So in a case like this, you would then want to speak with a healthcare professional, and they would then kind of reduce the amount of drugs that you're taking until your body could naturally, with just the natural remedies, maintain your blood sugar levels. Now let's talk about foot care. And this is important. As we mentioned, we're going to come back again. Clean your foot thoroughly every day. Why? Because you cannot feel. Diabetics, type 2 diabetics especially, they tend to lose feelings in the extremities. And so things could be happening there, and you're not paying attention to it, and it could develop into an infection, and God forbid, a more serious situation where the legs in some persons have to be amputated. So make sure that you're cleaning them daily. And when you're doing your temperature, so like if you're doing a warm foot bath, check it or have somebody else check it for you just to make sure the temperature is not too hot. And that way you would avoid burning yourself. Let me talk about the hydrotherapy. So this is something that you can do now. This is going to be taking a short cold bath for 1 minute, but not more than 3.5 minutes. What this does, when you do these cold, I'm sure you're seeing cold plunges now all over the internet. What these cold baths do, they actually clear the body or clear the blood of excess sugar. But if you do it for too long, then you have chilling, which then reverses the effect. So it's just a short amount of period, as we say, 1 minute, not more than 3.5 minutes, a nice cold shower, and that would help to clear the blood of excess sugar. Point to note, because it has happened to me before, so I'm going to note it here. If you have asthma, this is something you want to be very careful with. You won't do it in the night, and you may want to start doing it gradually. So you won't go straight to cold, you'll gradually get yourself down there. Because I had a client, I did this presentation, and I helped her with her blood sugar levels, but then she went and take a cold plunge at this hour, like right after we done a seminar like this, and she started wheezing throughout the night. So just want to put that in there. If you know you have asthma, then definitely don't do this in the night before you go early morning. You may want to do it, when the temperature is a little bit more regulated, and you want to do it gradually, right? Circulation. Let us talk about some things that you can do to improve your circulation. And this is circulatory rock. Now, this is really simple. You just hold on to a steady surface and you kind of rock back between your heels and your toes. What this will do, this will actually help to drive blood down to your feet, which will actually help with the lower extremities post circulation. We also looked at the foot baths in terms of using that, but because a person is diabetic and their feelings will not be as strong, the nerve damage, we don't recommend the foot bath for them. So the circulatory rock is normally what we recommend for them instead. That way, you won't have to worry about burning or damaging your feet because you can't feel the temperature of the water. Right? So this is something that you would use. And that has brought us to the end. Now, what I'm going to do for you guys is that we actually have all of the information that we just mentioned there in a handout. So if you would like to get that handout, what I'm going to do here is, let me see the easiest way to place that handout. So most of you I have here. So just indicate for me in the chat and I will send this handout to you so that you can always go back and review it because there was a lot of information that we covered here tonight. And I want to make sure that you guys have access to the information or at least have a quick reference. I wouldn't be able to always come back and watch the recording, but you have a quick reference, especially with the hubs and the protocols, the lifestyle changes that you need to adopt. Just indicate for me in the chat and I will hand it and send it over to you. So that being said, thank you so much for being part of our seminar here tonight where we looked at diabetes. Where is the sugar? We have now completed the 2 parts. Last week we looked at the theory. This week we're looking at the practical application. And I'm just going to open the floor for maybe just a few seconds. If you have any questions, you can ask them right now in the chat. And I will answer them if I can right here. If not, I need to do more research and I will do that and get back to you. So if you have any questions, you can ask them in the chat. Okay, Alana, got you. So I'll drop that in the FitMac group for you ladies. I'll drop it in the church chat as well so that everybody can get access to it. Lovely. Lovely, lovely. All right, perfect. Perfect. Eloisa, right, so it'll be in the FitMac group. I know you have this already, but yes, we'll drop it in the FitMac group. We'll drop it in the FitMac group there for you. All right, so no questions. That means that the information was clear. Excellent. If anything comes up, definitely let us know and we'll answer it. You can drop it in the comments below and we'll answer it there for those of you on Facebook and YouTube. And for those of you in the church chat, you know, you have my numbers. You could just WhatsApp me. So let us just bow our heads as we close off this afternoon segment with prayer, and then you will be on your merry way. Dear Father in heaven, we want to thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to be here tonight where we could have learned of your natural remedies in reversing blood sugar levels and reversing diabetes. As we go now, Lord, we help us, Lord, to make the lifestyle changes that are needed so that we can break the chain and gain the blessing you have promised from adhering to your laws of health. We ask you to bless everyone on here tonight and those who will be hearing it thereafter. And until we meet again next Sunday, greet everyone throughout the week, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for tuning in. And for those of you just joining for the first time, this is something that we do every single Sunday night at 7:30 p.m. right here live on Zoom. And then we also have a rerun on Mondays, specifically with the health segment that will be both on the Facebook and YouTube pages so that you can also come back and catch it. Have yourselves a great night. And until then, God bless.